Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Code with the Italians. Today with us, we have Manuel. Hi, Manuel. Welcome.
Hi there. Thank you for having me here. How are you?
Tired, but happy to have you here and to be here. I don't know why, I'm tired. I'm always tired, so that's kind of like a baseline thing, but particularly tired today. But I don't know why. I start the stream and I'm immediately energetic, so that's great. That works for me. Wakes me up more than coffee at this point. How are you doing?
Dopamine.
Yeah.
I was gonna say probably you need an espresso, but
But
at
I've
this
had
point,
one already. I had an AeroPress a couple of hours ago, and I'm like, shouldn't drink more coffee now.
Yeah, sure, you should. I'm gonna just have a pocket coffee and fuck it.
Ah,
I have a headache and I'm
hey,
sleepy,
hey,
so I'm
hey,
gonna
hey!
have
You shouldn't promote products that we don't get paid for.
hashtag no ads.
Yeah.
We don't have any kind of money support from Ferrero, so it's my thing. That's it. So
great.
just
So
get off me.
I think Manu, maybe you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Manu. I'm part of the Android developer relations team at Google, and I've been working lately on architecture and testing as well. But in the past, you may know me from blog posts about coroutines, dependency injection, Hilt, Compose. Now I'm trying to focus on architecture. So I guess that's why I'm here.
Nice. Yes, today we're going to be talking about your latest work, which is the architecture guidelines that you've published on developer.android.com.
Yeah, you as in the team, right? Like it's not the work of just one person. We
Yeah,
are a lot of
yeah.
people
I
involved
said
in here.
you,
So
but I mean you in plural.
yeah.
It's not my fault. English is a bad language for that.
Yeah. I just wanted to make it clear because I some people that I don't want it to be selfish. I want to share the credit to everyone else involved.
But also want to deflect part of the blame.
Exactly. Like
I
it's
didn't
not
write
my
that
fault.
line.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't written
Sebastiano, be
anything.
nice.
That works. Okay, so before we get started, Ivan, do you want to do the event thing?
Yes, let's do the event things. I'm just gonna put a couple of links in the chat in the meantime to reach out to Manuel. So there has been a great week for our supporters. We have a couple of new people supporting us on Coffee, and we are selling our. Oh, thank you for
Thank you
the
for the sub.
We are selling the new stickers quite well, so thank you for supporting the channel. And if you are wondering what are the stickers that are selling the most, is the Italian point stickers, because of course, right, this is what we do. So talking about stickers, you will find also these ones on the store. You can buy the Angry Pizza sticker, but you can also win the Angry Pizza sticker. We are giving away stickers on every episode to our subscribers. So if you are a subscriber, just a follower, you don't need to be a subscriber to win this one. You need to be a subscriber to actually win the holo stickers that you cannot buy. Huh? How about that? Huh? How about create digital scarcity? Huh? How about that?
Are you saying those are
So
NFTs?
no, those are real stickers that you can own and you can put on your this. I mean,
They
this is not a
exist.
JPEG. It's they exist in the real. There is no blockchain and at my place. It's just my desk. They are on my desk. And jokes aside, you will get the pizza, the Angry Pizza sticker, the Holo sticker if you're a subscriber, or a bunch of other stickers like this fancy IntelliJ stuff. And yeah, I mean, we are preparing envelopes because we are sending stuff all over the place. And I got new stamps, so it was just
Even by now, you're essentially a postman.
Yeah, I'm like I don't know. Maybe I'm the only person that buys stamps in my town, because they always look at me like, "What the fuck are you doing with all these stamps, right?" And who's selling like letters, envelopes in like Australia, nobody. I was like, thank you for your support. Stick with us, follow the chat. We are gonna extract one of you later today, and for the winner of the giveaway, the stickers come free of charge. So we are just gonna ship them. It's all thanks to the subscribers and supporters. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you can actually support us for free, because Uncle Bezos gives us a free subscription to a Twitch channel every month if you have Amazon Prime. A lot of you have Amazon Prime, so just give it a try. You need to connect your account Amazon and Twitch, and then you will see a blue button and say subscribe with Prime. It's free for you, and we get more money to buy more stickers. And that's it. I'm done.
I think there's one more thing to say, which is today is Sunday, which means we're going to be giving away an IntelliJ license at some point.
Oh yeah, also that. So if you all love IntelliJ and hashtag no offense, Manuel, and you hate Android Studio, you also can. I'm kidding. But if you are not doing Compose for Android, you can use IntelliJ to do Compose for desktop. If you wanna a license, just stick with us. We are gonna give away 1 year subscription for IntelliJ Ultimate. That's $150 worth of license. So stick with us.
Okay.
Amazing. I use IntelliJ a lot as well. So it's not just for Android development. Encourage everyone to participate.
Thank you, Manu. Okay, so shall we start to talk about the guide? I think, so as I mentioned earlier to you, Manu, I have skimmed it. I have a very basic idea of what's in there. Oh, here's a dog. I have a basic idea of what's in there.
Because people are asking.
Yeah, I have a terrible memory and I skimmed it last month. So what about a small refresher for me?
Yeah, definitely. So this guide was published last year. Actually, it was December, before the end of the year, before Christmas. It wasn't supposed to be a Christmas gift, but ended up like that, just for people to, in the free time to take a look at it and trying to go through it. Kind of the target audience is pretty much all Android developers. That's why we need to be very careful with what we say and the way that we explain things. And mostly as pretty much every guide in DAC, in developers.android.com, is that it's going to be consumed by beginners. And so for us, this was kind of a way to say, okay, if this is your first approach to architecture, then this is something probably you can follow. This kind of first introduction to architecture, why architecture matters, and why probably you should go and follow our recommendations. So what you can find here is basically that, recommendations of how we think you should architect or kind of design your application, how separate responsibilities and all that. And for intermediate and advanced developers, nothing changes there, right? So here there are some explanations about how you can do it. It's not that we mandate it. It's just a couple of things that you can take in mind. But also, there are some patterns and some things that if you are not sure if your approach works or not, then you can give it a go and see. Also, it's a different way for you to think about certain topics. So I know, for example, one of the most controversial topics here is the UI events page, because everyone does it pretty much in their own way. And so this is kind of, if you're intermediate or advanced developers, you can read it and you can rethink, or at least think about a different approach of how to do what you already do in your day-to-day project. And kind of, keep in mind that there are other solutions that you might agree or not, but they are there. And these are pretty much the solutions we went for. Probably we can go into the different areas if you want. There was a high-level overview.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, if you think I should be sharing the screen with folks, just let me know, because right now it's just our faces.
Okay.
Yeah, just FYI.
Okay, it's fine. This high-level overview could be, just us. Which is also we're saying we differentiate 3 different layers. and each layer having like a different scope in your application or a different responsibility. And then we have UI to display application data on the screen. We have the data layer, which is supposed to contain the business logic, how to create, read, and kind of modify the data that is going to be available to the app. And then we have an optional one, which surprisingly, I didn't think that people were going to comment that much on why it is optional. But we have an optional one, which we call domain layer, not to be confused with other domain stuff that other architecture patterns have in their name. But for us, this domain layer is mainly about making it simpler for the UI to consume data, or if the data if multiple parts of the UI need to reuse the same piece of logic, this is a way to make it shareable and not duplicate code in the UI layer.
Got it. So when we're talking about architecture, like there's a gazillion different ways of doing architecture out there. And I'm curious how you ended up on this specific way of doing architecture. Like what were your considerations? What were you aiming for?
Yeah, the main considerations were, first, it has to be simple. As I was saying, like it has to be simple to be consumed by beginners, and someone with a limited knowledge of Android is supposed to put it into practice in their projects. We also explain like having a good architecture is going to allow your application to scale. It's going to be more robust. It's going to be better, like in terms of debugging. It's going to be easier to debug and test. So we recommend having a good architecture in place. And there are like different considerations. The first one is that this doesn't come out of the blue. The community has been following this architecture for ages. As I was saying before, like it's quite difficult to come up with something completely new. Our team has a lot of responsibility with whatever we put in DAC and whatever we write. And so we've been, before starting this project, we ran multiple surveys with our community. We kind of studied the different solutions that are out there, different libraries, just to get to know how the community was doing architecture. And this is actually something the community has been doing for a lot of time. And we wanted to consolidate all those practices into one single page, well, more pages, one single guide. And if you think about it, like there isn't that much into the guide. Like you can summarize it in a couple of principles. It's like we are trying to go with the principle of separation of concerns, trying to have each class with its own responsibility and not trying to have God classes in that way. Also, the single source of truth. And that single source of truth is for both the UI, that, for example, you can have the unidirectional data flow pattern, but also for the data layer, where you're going to have, just for example, like the single source of truth coming from database or coming from cache, whatever. But those kind of the main principles behind the guide. And that's kind of something we wanted to reflect early on when you are reading it.
Just before we move on, I think you mentioned DAC. That's a Googleism for developer.android.com. Just in case anyone is wondering what that means.
Yeah, sorry. And actually, like, I'm not gonna lie either. Like, most of the recommendations that we are giving is powered by Jetpack. Obviously, we develop Jetpack, and so whenever we recommend a database, obviously we are gonna say Room, Work Manager, obviously Jetpack Compose, view models. So we can talk more later about view models, what we call now stakeholders, the different roles they play in the architecture. That's a quite interesting topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of going back to one of the things you've said, which is that one of the patterns. Thank you for the sub. The patterns that you are employing in your architecture guide are patterns that come from the community, and in particular, one of them that we've seen in many different ways over time is unidirectional data flow. Maybe it would be worth covering for someone that is doing MVI or NVVM, like what's different, considering those architectures are also implementing unidirectional data flow, what would be different for them, if anything, if they adopted your recommendations?
Well, actually, like unidirectional data flow is supposed to be the parent of MVI and MVVM, because it basically says like data flows in one direction, and then like data flows down, and then events go up in the hierarchy. That's actually like easier to see, for example, with Compose, and the way lambdas, propagate to the parent what to do with certain event and all that. So it's the pattern that MVI and MVVM drinks from. And so if you read, for example, the UI layer page, you will see that we don't mention at all MVI or MVVM, because like those are like completely overloaded concepts at this point in time in the Android community. And if you read that, like you're going to have some preconceptions about it, and we don't like it. And so like MVVM, people think differently about it, or MVI, like, are you talking about pure MVI or are you talking about something else? So UDF is basically like both MVI and MVVM follow UDF. And actually, like what we recommend is a combination of them. So for example, if you think about it from MVI, like just to make it clear, like we tell people to follow UDF, but the approach we have in our page is not it's UDF, but it doesn't have a name. Like the way we are recommending people to do things doesn't have a name, because people can use whatever they want, basically. Probably we should be more opinionated in that page or in this kind of area, but that's something like we don't want to do right now, but something that might come later in the future. Talking about it, so in this page, what you can find is that from MVI, what we take from it is that we only expose a single UI state. And that's something that in MVVM, like if you think about it, like in the past with live data and data binding, it was called whenever you expose multiple streams to the UI, but we are not doing that here at the moment. So in the UI layer from the view model, for example, we just expose one single stream. And then the other one from MVVM, what we are taking is that we are not modeling user interactions as intents that we feed into the view model. We just called a view model method to tell the view model to do something. So it's kind of a combination. It's like we recommend people to use what they prefer. Like if you prefer like a more like purist MVI style, go for it. No harm.
Got it. Besides MVI and MVVM, what are the main advantages of using unidirectional data flow? I think there's also both in terms of Vue framework and Compose especially.
Yeah, the benefit there is the single source of truth. Again, like that kind of stream exposed, the UI state stream exposed by the view model, it's really powerful. Because if you start, like, for example, if you think about other patterns like MVP, where the view model or presenter could be calling multiple view methods or behind an interface or whatever, like that's really problematic, and that can cause a lot of problems. But with unidirectional data flow, you know that your UI is supposed to be modeled as like a data class or whatever you want to implement it. And so it's an easier way, again, it's just to make it like more testable, like more robust, and you know where things come from. So it's easier to debug as well.
Got it. Just because we are seeing a bunch of questions going through in the chat, don't forget to put your questions on the Slido, folks. And also you can upvote questions that have already been asked so we can prioritize them easily. So yeah, don't forget to do that because it's going to help us a lot with asking the questions. And I think maybe we can take the first one from there. What do you think?
Yeah. Just to reiterate, I'm keeping an eye on the chat. I'm trying to copy paste the questions to Slido so they don't get lost in the chat. You can help us posting your question straight to Slido so we can look in one place and Manuel can have a mental model of what question do you want to answer before others. So please just bear in mind that we are going to look at Slido most of the time. End of the public service announcement.
Yes. So yeah, Ivan, do you want to go with the questions from the Slido?
Yeah, let me pick one question. So we have at the moment a few questions. I don't think we have upvotes. Or no, we have
we do.
upvotes. So the most popular one, we have the most popular one is how to properly pass ViewModel event to UI. For example, show a snack bar, navigate to a screen. Possible to share some code snippets about this. So I guess this is more like, not a view state, but like more like actions that you want to send from a view model to, I guess, the fragment, because that's the way we do, right, things.
Yeah. Seb, if you can open the UI events page, this is the one that I was saying before that it was most probably controversial one.
Yeah.
Because like pretty much everything wasn't a surprise for our community, but here we were a little bit more opinionated in the way that we were talking about it. And we had a long Twitter thread long time ago with Adam Powell from Android and a couple of folks from the community. Like we spent with this page, I think we spent it was 7 months, like discussing what to do with this, because like there was like no clear answer, and there were a lot of like multiple points of views. And in the end, like we ended up going for this decision. And like if you think about like UI events in general, like it could be user interaction, and if the user interaction actually from the user, for example. Actually, we can go through this decision tree. Okay, so you think, okay, where is the event originated? I think the question, it's talking about the view model, but let's try to cover everything, and then we can go more deeply into the view model one. So if it's coming from the UI, if the event requires, for example, let's say the user clicking a button or whatever, if it requires, for example, UI behavior logic, and with that, let's say this is a navigation event. If that happens, if you have to navigate to another screen and the user clicked a button, just do it in the UI. Like it doesn't need to go to other places in your hierarchy, because that's something that belongs to the view. What to do, for example, when the user wants to navigate or whatever. But then if it requires business logic, for example, like making a payment or something like that, that needs to be delegated to the view model. And now, like, the question is like, okay, but what happens if the event is originated from the view model? Let's say, I don't know, the user wanted to make a payment, and like the payment was made, the server returned a success response, and now we have to communicate to the UI that it has to go to another place. So what we recommend here is to model those events as UI state. And there are some considerations for this. If you scroll down a little bit when we say like the section handle view model events.
There you go.
Yeah. Scroll up a little bit, because I wanted to explain the kind of this paragraph, that a couple of paragraphs that we have here. And this is important, right? Because I say, okay, you have a view model event, or you want the view model to communicate to the UI. The easiest thing would be, okay, just tell the UI to do something. And the approach we want to take is that you don't need to stop there. Sure, like you want the UI to take an action. But is that the last thing you want to do, or how is that interaction like modify or influences other things like the UI state? And in this case, we say like pretty much all events should end up in a change to the UI state for a couple of reasons. First, because it is reproducible. So for example, if something goes through a configuration change, that event hasn't been consumed, then when the view comes back, it can display that event to the user. And also because it's safe, like there is no way that event can be lost, and that's something important. So for example, for the example I was mentioning about the network, about the payment made, the easiest thing would be saying from the view model, say to the view or to the UI. It could be views or compose or whatever. It's like, okay, navigate to whatever. But that's not flexible. Like, what if you are, in a tablet or you are in Where? Like, it might not be navigate to X. So what's the thought behind this? You know what I mean, Ivan? The state of the application is the payment was successful. Like, that's what you want to say, and that's what you want to communicate. And the view with that information can do whatever it wants. Like, it could be, showing a snack bar, it could be navigate to another screen, but that's not something that that responsibility shouldn't rely on the view model, because the view model could be reused.
So you don't say show the snack bar, you just send a view state, then the view interprets as, okay, so now I show the snack bar, or show the toast because I don't have or I show a dialogue because the designer don't sleep at night, or exactly. I navigate to, okay. Oh, that's fascinating, because I usually have these other approach, right? I mean, I have events coming from the view to the view model, like, a click event, and then the view model generates a state if I need to show, content, loading, error kind of thing. But if I need to navigate, or I need to show a snack bar, so I don't kind of change the state of the view, but it's more like an action that I trigger on the fragment, unfortunately, because that's how Android works. I'm sending an action. Back in the day, it was like a single event, the live data kind of thing. Nowadays is a shared flow. I have like two outlets, right? The view model has two outlets.
Yeah, two streams.
Yeah, if you have, but there is also the subtlety of they are consumed differently, because being the state flow, always having a state, while the shared flow is just like kind of fire and forget, or you lose it. So that's also complicating things. You need to know, right? But if you use view states all the time, it probably also simplifies a lot.
Yeah, for example, you were mentioning shared flow. The problem with shared flow is that if you send an event and there is no collectors, then that event is going to be lost. Then in some way you need to have some sort of buffer or something, but then you are converting it into a proper state flow. And if it's a state flow, like, why not having that information in the proper UI state? So for example, here on the screen, we can say login UI state, and then you can have error message, or you could have user messages if you want to give more, you want to be more flexible and say, okay, no internet connection or whatever. Exactly. And so, for example, if you scroll down a little bit, we are not recommending, like, we know, for example, in other libraries, MVI libraries, they also have two streams. Having two streams is also fine, but the idea is that it has to be like state flow. It has to be like a data holder, an observable data holder, just to make sure that that event is properly consumed and is not lost. And that's why.
Sorry, by two streams, you mean one for the event and one for the data that comes with the event, or?
Yeah, but as I was saying, like, you could have two streams if you want to differentiate it like them. But what we're trying to do here is, like, they are not events. Like, you don't need to think about them as events, as like actions for the UI to take. It's more about trying to go a step beyond and try to see how to make it generic so that it represents the UI state or application data. So it wouldn't be like show or snack bar text. No, it could be like something more generic, like user messages, for example.
Got it.
And I was saying, for example, like, other people used channels for that, and channels were okay to use prior, like, coroutines, before coroutines 1.4. But then there were some changes made into channels that didn't make them as safe as an observable data holder. That's why we have a note in the end, kind of discouraging that approach. So that's why, like, okay, you could use stateflow, or you can use a mutable state of if you're using Compose, or you could even use live data. Is that one of those observable data holder. That's it.
Yeah.
Before we go on, I think there's a couple of small questions, clarifying questions from the chat that I should ask. The first one is, what do you mean by non-consumed events?
What is that? Non-consumed events?
Yeah, that was a couple of
I
minutes
guess
ago.
they were referring to the shared flow. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the radio, right?
Oh.
If nobody's listening to the radio, the song is still going on, and then you turn on the radio, and Lady Gaga is not there anymore. That's nobody.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
think
Like shared flow, it's hot, and it's gonna be active like pretty much all the time, even if there are no collectors. So that's something like we don't recommend either. Like obviously, like you can use whatever you want, but we are trying to come up with the safest and like most scalable solution that we could find, because like we need to be safe, basically. Okay, so something important here, and
Yes.
a lot of people complain with this approach, because for example, as I was saying before, like with this code snippet that you have here, the UI, for example, when the message has been displayed to the user, the UI has to notify the view model that the message was being displayed. And some people might think that's a lot of boilerplate, because, for example, with other solutions like channels, for example, you don't need to notify that because it's going to be implicit in that way. So it might seem like there is a little bit more of boilerplate in that case. But if you think about it, it's like the user seeing the message is like another state change. It's like the user has completely seen the message, or the user has dismissed the snack bar or whatever. That's a state change, and that state change from the user is being notified to the view model, and then the view model, for example, can remove the message from the list of user messages or pending messages to show to the user. And this is important as well, right? Like, for example, like the message is displayed to the user, and immediately like the screen is rotated, and probably the user didn't have the chance of looking at it. And you can think, okay, now the message is going to be displayed twice. But is that displayed twice, or like it better being like, sorry, in the, like it's better that the message is displayed twice than trying to think that the user saw the message when in reality the user didn't. Yeah. So trying to
if you think about that, it hasn't been displayed twice. It's actually still there. That there's a subtle difference. So you make sure that the message is still there until you know for sure that the user saw it. It's actually caring more about the user than about I don't want to duplicate the message. No. Let's play this safe.
I was thinking about the perverse version of this, which is pop up a dialog and ask the user if they saw the error that they just missed. Like, did you see that error message? Yes or no?
Yeah.
But don't specify which one. Just did you see it?
And you also switch yes and no, right?
Obviously.
Like dark UX.
There's
because you yes in red, no in green.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like a GDPR consent style thing where they're really trying to make you click the thing they want.
Yeah.
Did you read the message? Accept all.
Yes.
Oh God.
Check the box if you don't want to see the message, and then you click accept.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Nice.
But
I actually I never thought about this nuance, because I grew up so used to, okay, this is working for me. It worked so far. I had issues in the past. I solved them with this pattern, and then bam, 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 bam. You are just applying the pattern over and over because it worked for you, and never stop to think about, okay, can I simplify it even a bit? So sorry, Aurelio is in the chat. He was one of my students. I told you this. Sorry, listen to the grown-up. Manuel has a better solution. Ciao. What's the play?
Actually, like That's why also we knew this was going to be somehow controversial, because for us, it was also hard to grasp. As you were saying, like we've been doing it for a long time, like, using single life event and things like that. We were so used to that, that coming with this alternative is, for me, it was life changing as well. Like thinking differently about events. Like you might think it's an event, but it might not actually be an event. It's something that you need to reconsider, and try to swap your head and your engine that we have in our brains to think differently. And that's why I was saying, like, it took us like 6 months or so to come up with this recommendation. It's not to come up, it's trying to convince everyone else that this approach is the right one. Or at least not the right one, but it's the one that we want to recommend. Because you can imagine we have people with completely different backgrounds at Google, with different completely opinions, and they all want their opinion to succeed, right? And having to convince everyone. And actually, I'm not going to give credit to my team or anything like that. Like this actually was highly suggested by It Boyar and Adam Powell, because as you can see, like from their bro, that we were thinking pretty much in the other approach, as we've been seeing it in the community for a long time. If you think, for example, about iOSGet, the Google I/O app, you can see how we do it in the old approach. Like for us, it's quite hard to now go there and refactor it. But now if you see new samples like Jet News, for example, with Compose, or Jet Snack, like we use this approach, and it works much, much better than the other one. So yeah, this is like something to sink in, is to reflect on what we actually mean with that. And that's why we also have this other section here, the other use cases, because you might think, okay, this solution or what you propose doesn't work for my use case. It's like, sure, like you might think it doesn't work for your use case, but if you try to, overcome it and trying to think differently, it might. And it could be like probably the event is not being handled at the right level. Maybe you need something on top. And it's actually, for example, easier in Compose, because something on top of your UI, it's another function. So you might not need to have, consume the event in this function, might need to be consumed in the parent or whatever. With views, it's a little bit more difficult because, it could be fragments, activities, whatever, or you could have, regular views. So it's hard to go like case by case basis, but with Compose, it's simpler.
I think like I understand that like this is it's very much about correctness and like meeting user expectations. And as a lazy person, I'm kind of like, oh, I need to do one more thing to make it. But then I know that at the same time, like the perfectionist in me, which is like the lazy person, the perfectionist are the devil and the angel on my shoulders. And the perfectionist is like, yeah, but you want something that works right. You don't want something that kind of works most of the time. You want something that works. So yeah,
architecture is about that, right?
Yeah.
Architecture is all about trade-offs. Do I want to spend more time with this because it might bring more benefits in the future or not?
Yeah.
It's all about that, right?
Yeah, and I think here an argument could be made, by the way, thank you for the sub. An argument can be made that this pattern makes sense for events that are like for things, messages that are important to the user, but maybe you don't need to do that for things that are transient and low importance. There might depending on your use case, because everything when you talk about architecture is it depends. But if it works for you, you might have some kind of things, some kind of callbacks or some kind of instructions coming from the view model that tell you, oh, this is happening, and that's something that maybe in your application just makes like a small nice animation start that is just purely visual. Then you probably don't need a callback for that to say I've done it. The view model doesn't need to know that. But if it's something that requires that you're, for example, the user is committing some action that might have a destructive or outcome, or it might be touching the data itself, then maybe yes, that you might want to have a way for the view model to know, okay, that's actually now it's done. The user has committed to it. They haven't stopped us when they had the chance to, or I guess that's the scenario you're thinking about, right?
Yeah, that's totally right. But also, like, for example, for user messages, it makes sense that the UI notifies the view model whenever it consumed or it displayed or the user saw the message. But for example, if we think about the first example we gave about the is payment successful, for example, like the view model doesn't need to receive anything else. Like that's not an event. Like the UI needs to take care of what to do with is payment successful. So you don't need to reset anything there because it's just simply is. It is like the payment was successful. That's it. There's nothing else to do with that.
So this is more about like maybe transient states that you can then move towards another one from otherwise. And there's a question in the chat about the use of mutable shared flow from the Apache.
That's what I was telling before to Ivan about shared flow. Like, sure, you could have buffers and all that, but if you use a shared flow, the event can be lost if there is no one listening to that. If you start adding buffers and all that, like at some point, it pretty much becomes a state flow. So just use the state flow.
Yeah. And we're talking about UI state in any case, so the name kind of tells you which one is the right one, probably. I think we have thoroughly answered this question.
I'm glad that we got this out of the way because it's probably also was the most controversial one.
But it's like it's almost as if people were very prone to doing hot takes on Twitter. I don't know. When you think about it, that actually makes sense, right?
It happens. I mean, people are very, 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 very careful on putting their opinions on Twitter. I never experienced some hot take, so I don't know what you're talking about, Sebastian.
Fair enough.
Me neither.
Yeah, good.
Seth, what are you talking about?
I'm sorry. I need to follow different people. I don't know. It's just my Twitter bubble is probably not great. Shall we go to the next question even?
Yes. So we have more like I will call it a aesthetic question, but I like the idea. So is there any recommendation for the folder structure that comes with the architecture?
That's actually a pretty good question. We don't have one at the moment, and that's something we want to work on, which is more about modularization on how to structure your packages and folders and all that. My suggestion would be like, again, it depends, but what I've seen so far, like kind of organizing it by package in features, like login, payments, and all that, that usually works pretty well. And if you think about it, that you could always like modularize it. So you might have like vertical classes or vertical features, but then you might have some horizontal classes that might be touched by other parts of the code or other modules. So I guess that a combination of that, vertical and horizontal folders, might be a good one.
Actually, I want to add on this because we have a question about a structure for multimodule app. So that would probably work as well, right? You create a module for the login, and then you create a module for more like feature splitting, and then you have some probably module in the middle, like probably a domain module, right? Something that's like I don't know, probably I say domain because that's usually the name that I use.
Kind of a horizontal one with base classes and all that can be shared for different modules. How do you do it in bundle? Do you have like packages for features? Or?
Let me open it. So, but yeah,
we have one Kotlin file with everything inside. We went for So
I mean, everything is in this file. Everything is here.
Yeah,
No, I'm
the whole
We call
project.
it all-in feature.
yeah.
So it simplifies dependency injection, simplify everything is basically not just a private field. Yeah. It works. It works for us.
Yeah. So our package structure is a bit all over the place in some sense, because, for example, like this composables. I don't know why this is in a separate package. It's called composables, probably because at the time I didn't have any better idea. that the story of this code base is I was live. I didn't think about it. But yeah, we have like a package where we have all our glance widget code. We have a package for each screen. So we have a history screen. We have the notifications list screen, the onboarding screen, the preferences screen. And then we have some horizontal packages as well, such as we have navigation, where we have the routing. This is probably in the wrong place. That's fine. We have the UI.
The storage we have. We have
storage. We have the UI stuff, and then the mandatory util package where you dump things you don't know where to dump, pretty much.
MISC, because MISC is you don't want to, so we call it util because MISC is bad.
We should add that folder to our templates. The util folder is always there.
A util folder with like an empty Kotlin ext file, an empty Android ext file.
Utils.kt.
Okay, so we have a mission for the next release of the Unicode emoji specs. We need a dumpster fire emoji, and we need to use that as the folder name for util.
Sure.
So we're gonna have just a single emoji that is a dumpster fire. You just chuck everything in there when you don't know where to put it. Dumpster fire.
Yeah. But before that, we need a JDK that runs emoji on Windows. Otherwise, I'm not buying it, Sebastian.
It has been released in IntelliJ 21.3.1, I think.
Is it the early access?
No, it should be the stable one. But
oh, nice. So
yeah, I think it should be there. So it should be fine. Okay. Obviously, not in studio yet, because it's a couple of releases behind, kind of waiting for the next one. But I don't know which version of IntelliJ is going to be based, so we'll see. But eventually we'll get it, so it's going to be fine. The thing I'm not sure is if you can use emojis in all file systems, because you might have some file systems that are just like, nope. But then who knows? By the way, there's a question that is an interesting one. I think is more of a philosophical one from the chat, which is, should we use singular or plural for packages?
Tough question.
Yeah, I tend to use singular, except when I don't. As you can see, like, it's mostly singular, except
preferences.
Yeah, preferences, migrations. This is Florina's fault, by the way. It's called.
Let's blame it.
This one shouldn't exist, so it doesn't count. And yeah, notifications and notifications list like this. Yeah.
But
the answer for me is
pick one over the other. I mean, if conveys meaning, why do you even bother, right?
I agree.
I mean, probably you have one storage and one database, but what if I have more notifications? I want a notifications folder.
Yeah. I think
give me a break. This is a
I think it depends on the case. I would try to use singular unless plural sounds better, if that makes any sense. It's not really a hard and fast rule, but
I think that's how English works, Sebastiano. But okay, I don't want to
YOLO it.
I mean, that's probably the idea of, I'm going for singular, but if plural works better, I'm going to use plural. I think that's how languages work.
I guess it depends on what you would do. For example, like if you had like onboarding, it's just onboarding. But if you had stuff like news or movies, like you don't say movie. Like, I don't know. I guess it depends on what you want.
Yeah, it will make very weird feeling. Let's pick another question, shall we?
Yep.
I'm not gonna pick the Flutter one. So I'm gonna pick from Slido. So should domain depend on data layer? Shouldn't it depend on an interface instead?
Yeah. So usually, like the data layer, we have it exposed as an interface because it's easier to fake in tests and all that. So yeah, usually like data layer could be an interface mostly, and most of the times, for example, repositories are going to be behind an interface. I don't know if the question has more into it or
That was it.
Okay.
No, there was like probably a dependence. Okay,
I
I'm
guess
gonna
like
reread it. Should domain depend on data layer? Shouldn't it depend on interface instead? I'm already struggling understanding the domain that depends on the data layer as a starter. No. I'm genuinely asking because probably I'm not getting the meaning of data layer in this specific architecture, Manuel.
Exactly. I think they might refer to the clean architecture version of the kind of the most purist implementation of clean architecture in Android, where usually data depend on domain and not the other way around that we are saying. But they have different meanings in this context. Domain layer in our guide means something different, and that's where the confusion might come from.
Okay,
so in our case, we call domain layer to a very specific set of responsibilities. And given our definition of the domain layer, then it makes sense that the domain layer depends on repository classes. For example, domain layer, think about it as use cases or like interactors in your app. And in that case, your use case depends on a repo, for example.
Yes, of course. Well, more like an interface. Well, I mean, yes, because a repo for you is basically an interface, and then there is an implementation somewhere. Okay, so domain will be use cases.
Yeah.
And data will be where you interact with the rest of the world.
Yeah, data is repositories mostly, which is like the class exposed.
But the implementations of repositories. Or repositories like interfaces and implementation.
Yeah. So repositories is the class. It could be a class. It could be an interface. It's something like the responsibility of the repo is going to be to kind of having, for example, given multiple data sources, to kind of combine them and decide which one to use at which particular point in time. Just kind of like combining multiple data sources. And we give that responsibility to something that we call repositories. And it could be an interface or it could be whatever.
Okay.
We recommend interfaces just to be easier to fake.
Yeah.
And then you could have something like, movies repository impl, just to give it a name.
Oh yeah, naming is gonna be like another religion war there. So that don't go there. Don't go there, Manuel. Cool. Okay, Sebastiano, anything from your side, or we go with the next question?
No.
Okay.
For once, I don't have anything to say.
Wow, that was okay. That was. Are you okay? I mean.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm just doing chat duties while you do the question stuff. So.
Fantastic. Okay, let's pick another one. So the the first most voted question at the moment is showing events on the UI using the mentioned way in the docs isn't error prone. Like showing snack bar and then manually removing processed messages from message list.
Yeah. So the idea is that you wait for the message to be displayed and be interacted by the user before notifying the view model. So for example, with Compose, it's very easy to see because show snack bar is a suspend function. So you just call show snack bar whenever it resumes, then you notify the view model. So it's not like you notify the view model immediately, just when the message is being displayed.
Yeah, and when you say when it resumes, it's literally the next line of code is notify the view model.
Yeah, that's why it might seem like you notify it straight away, but actually like that function suspends.
I was thinking we need stickers of the suspend icon.
Yeah, we
More
need
stickers.
We need to get
sticker all the things.
But I mean, we need. I
have a
love
problem.
stickers. Everybody loves stickers. So you need to do this. If we don't do it, who's gonna do it, Sebastiano? We are actually.
JetBrains?
Well, okay, so
I can ask if they have
a billion-dollar company for fuck's sake.
I can ask if they have them. If they have them, I can get them to send them to me, so I don't need to print them myself. That would be good, but I don't know.
They might have the budget anyway.
Yeah, probably they have the budget. Okay. Suspend stickers. Yes, people are very, very waiting for them. Yeah, Sebastian, you're fucking genius. Anyway, I just want to remember everybody that you can win our stickers. So join the giveaway. Type the right word in the chat. The bot is gonna keep track of everybody. And good luck. So
I just realized we're slowly teaching Italian to people by giving away stickers.
By giving away stickers, okay. I mean, I'm pretty much sure that a lot of people already knew the word pizza, Sebastiano.
Well,
but I see
the type of pizza is what matters, right? So Sebastiano is training them to.
There's a question.
In Italy.
What is diavola? Diavola is a kind of pizza. It's what Americans call pepperoni pizza, which is spicy salami. Why do they call it pepperoni? I have no idea, because in Italian, pepperoni means bell pepper. They're weird. They're confused. I don't know. But yeah, to us, diavola is the real name of pepperoni pizza. And
so
no, Manuel is not Italian. He's Spanish.
I'm Spanish.
Yeah. Spanish.
But I love Italy, so.
Estoy estudiando, Manuel. I walk across I walk with the babe in my sling, in the baby sling, and because when he gets fussy, he doesn't want to stay at my desk. I mean, yes, right. So I need to walk, and I was like, at some point I found myself just walking through the house. I was like, I'm wasting time, because you walk like 1 hour, the baby then falls asleep, but you just wasted 1 hour. Yeah, I mean, the Fitbit is happy, whatever. But I was like, what can I do while I walk the baby? And I was like, okay, I'm installing Duolingo. Now I'm learning Spanish. Fuck it. And that's it. I'm like more than 1 month in. Soy feliz, and it's actually very nice. So, I
thought you were gonna say, when I talk Spanish to the baby, I calm him down, and now like he used to sleep.
No, because I talk Spanish the same way I talk Southern Italian. So I
very loud.
I sound very loud, and I sound like a fucking narcos, I have that kind of it's not good for anybody. I sound like somebody from like Casa de Papel kind of shit, right? It's a very, very me chiamo Tokyo kind of thing. It's not nice for anybody. But yeah, it works for me, makes me happy. And at the end of the year, I'm going to be speaking 3 languages and 2 of the most popular languages in the world. So I can go to California and everybody can understand me.
Nice.
Twice.
Twice.
Anyway, let's have some spike.
Yeah. So Illustrator is making compliments to you, Manuel, for your English accent. So.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah. The Apache is asking if you're planning to rewrite your workout app in Compose.
Like the Count for Me one.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't even know where the code is. Like, I think I lost the code keys and everything. But it would be a good learning exercise. I have one app that is called Count for Me, which actually it counts for you, so you don't have to think about it when you are doing reps.
But
And
can
I
you
love
make it count in Spanish for Ivan?
Yeah. Like you can select the language that you want, so it's nice.
Nice.
That's actually nice. Okay, so for those who are not watching the ads, thank you for being a sub. For those watching the ads, you can get rid of them. Just check the chat. Let's also switch to me as well, so it doesn't look like I'm talking through my dog bath.
God damn it.
Yeah, I mean that was bad because I always feel like where is the voice coming from? I'm just seeing Sebastiano Manuel and the Labrador that is sleeping, so it freaks me out. So let's get another question. How should we deal with composable that have 25 arguments if the composable is just a bridge between UI and VM?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's what it is. I mean, that's the way like composables works, right? Like they accept parameters, and you need to use them as you need. Usually, also what I've done in the past, I've been trying to kind of group parameters that look alike and into separate classes. For example, let's say that you have 5 lambdas, and then you can have those 5 lambdas in one class and call it, with a more meaningful name. But then you could argue, why do you need that extra class? Just pass them as parameters, and that's it. Yeah, if you have 25 parameters, you have it. Like, I don't know, probably, I don't know what to suggest. It seems like a very complicated composable. If you have 25 parameters, probably that's an exaggeration. You might have like 7 or 8. Still, they are a lot. But if you think, for example, about it, like if you see the Compose APIs, you could have Scaffold or other APIs with a lot of parameters as well. There is no better way to do it, right? So it's composable. It's Compose itself, I would say.
Fair enough.
Have you found any other better way of doing that?
No. I mean, most of the time I find myself suppressing detect because, annoys me. Oh my God, there are too many. Fuck you, detect. There are not too many. There are enough parameters. Those are not too many.
Detect doesn't want you to do functional programming even.
Detect is just, no, but I mean, it's legit when you are probably doing like a normal class, like a view model with 25 parameters is going to be bad. But a composable, I think from a mindfulness point of view, when I think about a composable, I know what a composable is, right? It's doing just a few things, UI related. I'm feeding it state. It's getting me back events. That's it, right? That's a fair relationship. If there is a lot of state and there are a lot of events, okay, that's still fair. But then, as Manuel suggested, probably just try to extract stuff. Maybe you can split the composable, or you can just, I don't know, put a comment or whatever. Try to help the next fellow that comes in and say, why this thing has 25 arguments? Let me refactor it. And then he's going to have 26 because...
I was going to say that, like, to add on top of that, it's actually like if it has 25, the composable is doing too much, as in too much. And probably you need, for example, stakeholder just to handle like certain state and events. You might need to do something else. You might need to refactor. But if that's an API that you want to expose, like if it's, for example, you have multiple states, like that's something like you might need to reconsider. Because, reuse, like if I think about it, like reusing that composable is going to be hard. You have to pass like 25 things.
But often you find you step through composable in the Compose API that they have like 10 arguments, but they also have 8 defaults.
Yeah.
Right. So that's okay. I feel that's okay. So the API that you are forced to consume, it's very narrow. The thing is doing a lot of stuff, is giving you a lot of potential different behaviors, but that's not the API that is strictly forced onto you. Okay, so the real API is, okay, I just call the text composable and I put a string in it, and now I have a string on display. But if you look into it, it's going to be probably a lot more possible things like a style or a modifiers, of course, and things like that. But the basic API is just the string. And I think that's okay. I wouldn't stress over it. I mean, I don't think that's your first problem when you write an Android app. So yeah, thanks.
I agree.
Nice. Let's pick another one. I know that the Apache is working with a lot of stuff. So probably I have an idea where this thing is coming from. The question is, if there is no view model, how would you handle UI events? What's the recommended way?
Yeah.
So the Apache confirm. Are you?
Sorry, Ivan.
Livano,
you have to speak Spanish for 2 minutes now.
You are Sebastiano. You are.
No. Spanish.
Yo no puedo hablar español por 2 minutos. Fuck you. I mean, what? So, shut up.
Disculpa.
So, disculpe. Mal parido. Anyway,
worth it.
Plato plomo, exactly. That's the extent of my Spanish. The Cali cartel. So, are you referring to the Apache? Are you referring to like a Compose for desktop environment where we don't have view models?
Yeah, I think the question is going that way.
Yeah.
Porque no te callas?
Yes. Perché non te callas?
Tu sei un pazzo, va via da qui.
Lo siento, todos pueblo español en el mundo, lo siento.
Great, Ivan, don't worry. Yeah. Do you know that in Spanish your name is pronounced Ivan instead of Ivan? I don't know if you knew that.
Well, it's also in southern Italy. My dialect, because we had a lot of Spanish. A lot of Spanish. Yeah, you can say it was the good old days. But so let's go to the question. Back to the question. So
shall we? Yeah. Important things first.
They confirmed.
I think it could be because of that.
Yeah.
They compose for desktop, and so in our guide, actually, I'm gonna post a link here in the chat, and that's for the Compose documentation, the state one, and how to manage and handle UI complexity in Compose. And when we talk about it, we say that usually a view model is an implementation of a stakeholder. Now, stakeholder is something that we came up with because we didn't have a better name, to be honest. And we bike shed this for a long time, and we couldn't find a better name. Okay, so actually, just to give also a heads up, in the Guide to App Architecture, we wanted to publish another page which was going to be called Handling UI Complexity in Android or in the UI. But in the end, we pulled it out because we needed to refine it, and we will publish it probably in the future. Anyway, probably in the next couple of months. But we have the information. It's here in this in the Compose documentation. And actually, the talk and I gave at ADS, Android Developer Summit, last year, which is called Compose State of Mind, I also talk about this. And basically, like as I was saying, like the view model is an implementation detail of a stakeholder. And basically, the stakeholder is gonna handle UI complexity. And so if you don't have a view model, you can delegate all that logic to the stakeholder. So if you are in Android, there are different responsibilities, but if you are in Compose for desktop, you could have the state holder as if you had a view model. A couple of things here. So the stakeholder needs to be remembered and all that. And that's gonna, for example, expose the UI state, easy, and also can handle UI logic. That's gonna be usually scoped to the composable. That's why it's gonna be remembered. And you can have the same thing that you could do in the view model, you could have it in the stakeholder. And just like it's up to you if you want to kind of follow the pretty much the whole architecture. Like if you want your stakeholder to depend on a repository, that's perfectly fine. If you want to call the repository from your composables, up to you. It's also okay, but then like probably the UI might be doing too many things, and that's it pretty much. So I would let people, invite them to read this page, because it talks a little bit about the differences between view models, what we call like plain stakeholders. Plain stakeholders are plain classes that doesn't extend from view model, and that's it. So yeah, I would have it here in stakeholder. Any questions?
Nice. I'm wondering if we have like I get the idea of a stakeholder. Do we have like a snippet or some sort to just hint a possible implementation? Because it has to survive. So I guess there is also dependency injection involved at some level if you need to scope it. And I wonder if Decompose, Sebastiano, do you remember the library? It was also doing something like that already.
Yeah, Decompose is Kotlin multi-platform library that essentially gives you view models in the long-lived Android sense on all the supported platforms. I think maybe one key difference between Android and desktop is that the lifecycle on desktop is much, much easier to handle. And in most cases, you can get away with everything being in a single tone, in a global state sort of thing, because it just doesn't work the same way that it works on Android. So some of the patterns that we're used to, because we kind of work with the existing lifecycle and the need to release resources as quickly as possible, that sort of stuff doesn't really always apply with desktop. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I posted a link in chat. If you can open it, this is an example of stakeholder.
Yep.
In Android, things get more complicated because you might think, okay, what's the actual difference between a view model and a plain stakeholder?
Jesus.
And in the guide, we go through it. But for example, this is the Jetcaster, and this is a Jetcaster app state. This is a stakeholder that we have for the application composable, that you could think about it more or less, the app composable. And here basically is just we are delegating UI logic to a different class. UI logic that could be is online or navigate to player, because for example, if navigation logic can be complicated or can be become complex, you could have all that information, move it away from the composable itself to make it more readable, easier to consume and all that, and have that logic that can be tested in this stakeholder. As you can see, the stakeholder, it's scoped to the UI, is scoped to the composable. That's why it is safe to pass the context thing, for example. You cannot pass a context to the view model. It's not recommended. And that's why
you can, but it's never gonna pass the pull request review.
Exactly. This can have UI dependencies because it's gonna have the same scope. Or for example, and also it's a good practice to provide the remember app state function that we have above. And as you can see, it will provide you with a different instance of the app state if any of the app controller or context is gonna change.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you're just keying the existence of the state to the value of the nav controller and of the local context.
Yeah, exactly. And if you need to make something survive, this stakeholder is quite simple, but if you need something to survive config changes or whatever, Not config changes. For example, like process death in Android, you could use like remember savable in the state holder as anything. So this is why, like, actually, this is a way to reduce complexity from composables. The separation that we are giving in the guides for when to use a plain class as this one or view model is that, for example, like for this, we are saying that state holder is supposed to handle UI behavior logic, for example, navigation logic, or like is online or show this or show that, for example. And the view model is going to be in charge of the business logic, which means talking to the repo or doing more things that needs to survive configuration changes and all that. And this one, for example, upstate or the state holder is supposed to also to have the UI element state, for example, navigation controller, snack bar host, I think it's called, and things like that. You wouldn't have those into a view model because obviously view models have a higher scope.
Nice. This thing is actually, I need to look into this because this could be very useful, especially the aggregating the navigation in one place of sort or things like that. I need to check that.
Yeah, like going through your code base yesterday, like there are like whenever you are passing too many things into a composable, as we were saying, like passing 5 or 6 different params, it might be because the composable is doing too much. You could like extract that away, put it in a state holder, for example, like this, and actually it's gonna, as I was saying before, like the composable is gonna be easier to read. But the good thing is that this logic here can be tested. And it can be tested in isolation. And the good thing about Compose as well, like you can have an app host controller that you can control in your tests, and it's actually very nice.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Another question. Why Sebastiano fixes shit? So the sorry, did I say it loud?
Nope. No.
So
Nothing.
let's see why we don't favor function as dependency instead of interface. Function should be much easier to replace and to mock on test, even without mocking framework. Okay, I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I mean it's a good approach. Like instead of like injecting an interface, is injecting a function, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think so.
If it works for you and your team, go ahead. Like we went for interfaces because it's usually easier to understand and all that. Some people are not that familiar with functional programming, and seeing like lambdas flying around could be confusing for them.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know how it will work with, hilt or coin, that kind of how you do inject, because it's pretty straightforward to inject an interface and implementation function.
You might need qualifiers to do all that.
Yeah,
And
a lot of
boilerplate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the compiler is gonna struggle at some point with inference and that kind of stuff. So yeah, but I think it could be done. And so let's say Jep is asking, could the data layer include Android framework, or should it be Android agnostic, like GPS data, sensor data?
Ideally it should be platform agnostic as much as possible, but it is true that, as you were like giving examples, at some point you might need to depend on the framework. And for that cases, I would recommend hiding it away as much as possible, having, for example, like having that implementation behind an interface. Yeah. The actual implementation might depend on the framework, and probably you could have that implementation in a different module, Gradle module, so that the other module with the most of the logic could be, just a pure Kotlin. It doesn't need to depend on it doesn't need to be an Android library, and the actual implementation to be an Android library. Yeah, at some point you might need to deal with it, like if you develop for Android, but trying to make it as generic as possible.
At some point you hit the platform because you are actually running on the platform. So, but I agree. I mean, you should and you can segregate a lot of stuff behind an interface and YOLO and like fuck it. You just it's gonna be like resource resolver, and then there is like a gazillion of strings coming. But then at that point you can actually reuse the thing on desktop, right? Where you don't have Android, so you cannot do string resource whatever. But you can probably come up with another solution. I mean, we do this all the time, but I like the approach.
To be honest, you should do that for pretty much everything, a third-party library that you might depend on.
Yeah.
For example, like databases, Room, okay, like put it behind an interface. You never know if you will be replacing it or not. And actually, it's easier to test as well. So, yeah.
Also that. Yeah.
The one thing.
Yeah, I do it all the time with Firebase stuff, right?
Yeah.
I know that I'm gonna use Firebase, but I also still have an interface. I'm not gonna replace remote config with my own backend for AB, but still it's an interface. I don't care.
Yeah, but that way you can test stuff. Like you can unit test things, which you wouldn't be able to do otherwise, unless you start mocking everything, which is gonna lead to terrible tests, very brittle. Indeed. And very not black box tests. So the ability, like the good point of putting stuff behind interfaces is that you can implement the interfaces and have fakes that you control, or you can have stubs. But yeah, don't do mocks unless you can really do nothing else than that.
Stops.
That's like the last.
Don't use mocks. That's it.
Yeah, it's like if you really need to test something and something is really fucked and you really have no other way to do it, then maybe. But if you get to that point, there's probably something else that is going wrong. So
let's say it could be a red flag, right? The fact that you cannot do it without a mocking library. So just stop a bit.
I mean, sometimes you are kind of like you might want to try and unit test some code that has something to deal with, for example, the Android framework, but that's maybe something that should be in an integration test instead. So
something that I was reading this week, so just put it in the chat. To move to the next question.
You should have put my article, not someone else's.
Okay, so yeah.
I mean, I haven't read it. It's probably better than mine, so that's fine.
No. But this is last week, so I already read yours like when you
mine
wrote
is a bit older.
Anyway, just drop the link. I mean,
fine.
Always complaining this Italian. So let's Los Italianos, Manuel. So when to use remember and when to use remember savable, the line is a little blurry for me.
Remember savable is for when you want some data to survive process death and also to survive configuration changes. This is coming from the Apache. Like if you are in desktop, probably you don't worry that much about configuration changes. But probably you might care about, is that remember savable? I don't know if that's implemented in Compose for desktop. Do you know?
I have no idea, but if I were to bet, it's probably just calling to remember.
Right.
So like there's no difference between the two. So it's probably just aliasing remember.
Yeah, probably. In Android, it makes more sense. But also now in Android, like if you have a pure Compose app and you try to handle all configuration changes yourself in the manifest, the only difference might be surviving process death, which might be okay. I don't know, like it depends on your use case and the kind of application that you develop.
So what are you saying? That if I rotate my laptop, my Compose for Desktop app does not restart or configuration change? No?
Nope.
I don't think so.
I'm just asking. I'm very at the beginning of my Compose for Desktop adventure, so I mean, anyway.
I mean, you can try, but I don't know. But you can restart your laptop and
looks like a easier use case. I don't know if I'm actually feels like a bit easier. Okay, so thanks for the answer. Let's pick another one. Oh yeah, this is something. Okay, this is again. I mean, do you? Okay, I know composition locals are something that we should avoid using, but how do I choose when to and when not to? Any tips?
Yeah, I'm trying to go to the Compose documentation because we have a page just about this. I'm here. Let me paste it in the chat. This actually tells you when and when not to use it. But in summary, most of the times you shouldn't like it. Your whole application. So try to be as explicit as possible. But however, there are certain use cases where composition locals are a good solution. Most of them tends to be around the UI, like I don't know what examples we are giving here, but it could be something like elevations or things like that. So usually they are like highly related to the UI most of the time. But if you are trying to pass implicit dependencies because it's just easier to having to do prop drilling, I would try to be explicit, trying to, do prop drilling. It's okay. Like, I guess it can be really annoying when you pass the same parameter 9 times throughout the compose hierarchy. I know it's annoying, but it's a dependency, right? If it's a dependency for your composable, don't try to hide it in any other way.
Yeah, I always feel like you just have a box and so you can hide things in the box, but then at some point the box reaches out and picks whatever it needs and comes back like like, okay, that was creepy. Imagine, I always imagine when I need to pass dependencies, okay, that just passing this thing to the box and that's it, right? The box works. And then you have like some things like composition, or you're like assessing some global state of some sort. I always feel like a hand from the box picking whatever it needs and going back to the box.
Yeah,
So
don't access global state in Compose, by the way. It's a terrible idea. You're gonna be regretting that very soon.
And it's pretty much the same. Sorry. I was going to say this is pretty much the same kind of discussion of dependency injection versus service locators. You have with like the pure version of service locators, which is a implicit dependency in the end as well, and you might try to avoid that. Actually, like defining your own composition local is also not. It might seem like it's useful, and it certainly is for some use cases, but then it kind of influences how you test, how you preview your composables, because now that composition local is pretty much everywhere. Otherwise, your test or preview is gonna crash. So I don't know, it's a little bit nasty for depending on the use case.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a coincidence that the Compose libraries themselves only use composition locals for theming, essentially.
Yeah.
So try to do what the smart people do.
Fair enough.
But yeah, like for a more like comprehensive explanation of why or why not use it, like defer to the guide.
Fantastic, thank you. So Luis was asking any simple app that follows exactly the architecture. You mentioned Jet something. How was it? Jetcaster?
Jet News. Jet News is probably the closest one, and yeah, like we need to. That's something that we need to do in 2022 is trying to go through our samples that we have out there, seeing which ones receive more traffic, and put it like up to date with the guide to app architecture. The problem with this is quite complicated because, as we were mentioning before, like everyone does architecture in their completely own way, and samples have been developed by many developers, and they actually have their own way to do things as well. So it's hard to make everyone do the same things with the same decisions. we will try to update more samples in this in this year. Sometimes I think it's 2021, but actually it's 2022 already.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's
Actually-
2020.
2020 season 3.
Yes.
That's how I see it. That's 2020 season 3.
But yeah, Jet News is
okay.
a good sample to take a look at.
I'll put the link in the chat if anyone is, well, on this side for you folks. But yeah, there's a link in the chat if you want. And it's going to be in the episode notes if you're looking at this on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, Ivan, should we or should we not do the IntelliJ license thing?
Yeah, actually, I think we have no comments on YouTube, unfortunately. Probably either I messed up or I forgot or
Maybe both.
whatever. But yeah, maybe yeah.
I
Maybe
mean,
let's run it.
Yeah, we can do it next time.
Or I mean, we can even run it with the stickers. So we do
Yeah,
like
sure.
a double trouble. So I'm gonna
Raise the bar.
I'm gonna just give you more, people. I'm gonna give you more. So if you are still with us and you haven't joined the giveaway for the live people, that's also nice because we usually don't celebrate our live users with IntelliJ licenses,
But with
much.
stickers.
But with stickers,
I mean,
yes,
arguably.
that's also true. So let's keep it running a bit longer. Yeah, people are joining. I'm very happy. You see, one man fuck up, another man treasure. So such a poet, man.
Poet.
I mean, you don't appreciate me. You don't appreciate me enough. I don't
I
feel
do.
valued
I
in
appreciate
this.
you a lot, even.
Yeah, tell me. I mean, I'm very grateful. Actually, this sounds like a pretty kind of bromance kind of shit, but I really like working with you.
Likewise.
So I have something that I want to ask because I thought, okay, let's go with the most voted one for being to be just. So are use cases still a thing with Compose?
Yeah, definitely. Compose is just part of the UI layer in the architecture that we talked previously. And use cases are like, interactions that the view model, for example, can use to talk with the data layer. So if your app requires them, sure.
So you will have the view model constructor basically full of use cases.
Yeah, for example.
Right. So
it could be
no
view model,
repository.
it could be stakeholder. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, view model because I'm thinking Android at the moment. But
view model, yeah.
So you will have use cases there, and then the use case will have a repository injected to do the thing or a couple of repositories according to what it has to. So that's the kind of a chain. Okay.
Yeah.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah, and actually, like it makes a lot of sense in Compose as well, because if you think about it, use case is just trying to make view models simpler, and view models are still a thing in Compose, so makes sense.
Fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you can keep extracting stuff from the view model, and Sebastiano keeps saying they're testable, more testable if smaller components with fewer behaviors and things. So cheers, Mark. Let's pick another question. So when I touched Flutter a few years ago, I actually came in contact with block. Somebody is asking, could we have something like block design pattern as we have in Flutter?
Can you tell me more about block? I don't know.
Well, I mean, we can have an episode with Jake Wharton that he's gonna tell us all about Flutter and block, I guess. I'm kidding. Block is supposed to be something that helps you with how you architecture your app.
Yeah, that doesn't help much, I know.
Yeah. No, it's a state management thing, basically, if I'm not mistaken.
So let me see if I can share something. I'm just randomly looking up stuff, so I don't know if this is particularly helpful. It doesn't
Well, we don't have
look
to.
like it.
We don't have to have an answer. But
Yeah.
I imagine that I know, for example, in Flutter, there are some plugins or APIs, I don't know how they call them, which are like libraries to make state management a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And in Compose right now, we just expose the state APIs. So maybe like they are looking forward to something like Mavericks or something like that you call set content, or not set content, but set state, something like that, just to make it easier. We are not planning to do anything like that, and we haven't done it in the past either. I doubt that something that like that will come at some point, because that's really, really, really opinionated. I mean, something might come from the community. From the Compose team, might be more difficult.
So according to the chat,
go for it.
No, I mean, they're saying it consumes events and generates states. So
sounds like a reducer, reducer kind of thing,
like a Redux kind of thing. So, but do we need it? I mean, would you use it? Because, yeah.
I mean, it's like any other MVI library, right? But for Compose.
Yeah.
It could make sense, like if you had the DSL sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what I like about MVI is that it's quite easy to convert into a library. If you do something like in your custom way, it's more difficult. But if anything, like MVI allows you to stack things out into base classes and just extend from them. Yeah. Do you know if Mavericks supports Compose? I think so, right?
I mean, I remember they migrated to coroutines, but I don't know if they already.
I think they have a Compose
branch.
Branch or library or extension.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Probably that's the block version.
Yeah, here you go. Yeah, Mavericks-Compose alpha.
Yep. I'm just gonna put this in the chat.
2.1 alpha. So I mean, the thing is ready for NASA.
It's going to go to Mars.
I mean, come on, we're doing Android 2.0. For me, that's super stable. I mean, I'm shipping 0.01 to production like since like 10 years ago.
You're shipping stuff that is on Jetpack in production. I mean,
fair enough. I mean, we didn't ship it, but we were using Glance that was basically built on Marcel laptop when we tried it. So I think we are good. Wow. I mean, 2 point. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you remember the episode. Mark was like, "Yeah, you need to add this repository."
Yeah, you need the snapshots. From
because those are the snapshots. I was like, "Wow!" I mean. Okay, we are basically. They don't even have a CI because Marcel was like, no, we don't have it yet because I mean the thing builds, but we don't release. Yeah, it's on snapshots, so it's kind of we are building it from your laptop, right? And he was like, no. I mean, it's like it was awesome. Yeah. So I mean,
using snapshots, it's quite fun. It's something we were used to.
In our defense, but we weren't shipping to prod. So there's small detail.
Well, because we don't want to set up the Play Store thing. It's not that bundle. It's not ready for production. It's not doing anything, or was the value proposition at the beginning of the project.
It's doing 5% of the value proposition, I would say.
Yeah. There is a lot of guests, though. There is a lot of people carrying on. So.
We have so many things to talk about with people and lovely people to have. So it's kind of like we're giving priority to that because, I mean, for as much as it might be fun watching me break shit all the time, I think it's in the grander scheme of things is more useful for everyone to have this kind of discussions where we actually learn something apart. That I am very good at swearing.
Yeah,
Both are
nice,
good. I
nice.
mean, people might think they are not alone seeing you struggle. So
Yeah, that's one of the points of why we're doing this. I struggle.
That's definitely. Wow, tell me about it, my friend. Anyway, I have a nice question that is actually making me very curious because I have very little experience with that. How should we keep the code of instant and installable app in the same code base? Any example or document for a quick reference? I don't know if we have an answer for that. I have like
no idea, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a tough question, right? Like completely. Anyway, well, we tried. Anonymous, we're sorry, we tried. Let's pick
But I
another
guess
one.
like the kind of the same principles apply, right? Like it might not be in the same. It could be in the same code base if you modularize. So you try to have the base, as we were mentioning before about having those horizontal modules that might be reused by both the instant and complete app. So the idea would be to modularize as much as possible, I would say.
Yeah.
But
That's always nice.
on the contrary, we don't have good documentation on modularization. So that's something we need to work on.
Come on. You are too honest, my friend. There was an easy way out, and you are too honest.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. I really appreciate it. So another question: in case we have multiple independent UI components on a screen, like in a tablet, could we have multiple UI states for each component? Any suggestion?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think, for example, like having multiple composables and having like some sort of stakeholder attached to that composable is a good idea. Other times you might need to, if you need a higher scope, you might need to go one way up to another level. But ideally that, right? Like, for example, it doesn't need to be a view model per se. Like the view model, usually we recommend view models at the navigation level, like at the screen or route level of the navigation graph. But where you are, and that's something we do in JetNews. We have adapted JetNews for ADS to large screens. And before we had the list of news here with one screen and the article details in another screen. And we had a view model per each screen. But now view models are scoped to the destination. View models cannot be scoped to composables. So what we did is we kind of combined the two view models and then have just one view model. But then if you need something else like a stakeholder for each particular composable, then that's something you could certainly do. So the idea is, like if it's not possible to have view models, that's fine, but you have an alternative, which is just a plain class. That's why we also wanted to make that differentiation.
Can I follow up on this, asking about bundle specifically? You might have seen in the code that in the preferences screen, we have a shit ton of view models that we pass in, because essentially the preferences are taking data from several different places. And I like this kind of smelled at the time, but at the same time, it's kind of like I'm reusing the same view model that I use to set, for example, this kind of data in the onboarding. So would you how would you structure this sort of thing?
Can you open
one
of them, for example? Okay, so this one is going to, so this is actually a proper view model with logic.
Yeah, they all do.
Does it need to be a view model? As in, it makes sense because, for example, you want that, for example, to survive configuration changes, I would say. Do they need to be, so you have multiple of them because they are...
Yeah, for
reused in other
example,
parts of the app, right?
yeah, we created a separate view model for each page of the onboarding initially.
Yeah.
Because like I would have modeled them as fragments, for example, back in the day, each one independent from the others. And then I was like, well, we can rewrite essentially the same code, or we can reuse that that view model that only does essentially one thing in this case. Well, in many cases, but I need that view model both to display. For example, in this case, the active days of the week, so Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday, for example. So I need to show that in the preference screen. And I was like, well, I could create a view model that has the same logic again, or I can reuse the same view model because it only does one thing. So where
But
would
then
you put the
again,
balance?
do you need a view model? That's the question that I have here, right? By looking at the thing, is reading from storage. I'm fascinating about the alternative when you say state holder, right? So if you don't want to use a view model here, because
the thing is, if you create a state holder, which essentially is just this stuff in a class, just a thin wrapper, then this view model, which you kind of need to have anyway to persist the state across configuration changes, you kind of need to have it anyway. So you're just adding one layer of indirection, but you're not gaining anything because you're going to have to do it here and you're going to have to do it in the onboarding as well, right? Am I thinking about this the right way around?
Yeah, I think this is the right approach. What I would argue is that, as you said, it is weird to have 4 or 5 view models for the same composable. So the alternative, which is not better or worse, is just a different approach, is to have this kind of repeated logic that you said, okay, I want to reuse this in other parts of the app, to have them as use cases. So you could have active days use case, and then have, share the use case in different parts of the app, and have the view model, one view model being like injected with 5 use cases.
Okay, yeah.
But
I mean, to be clear, I don't like the way it's done now. Just to be extremely clear about it, but I was asking whether, like, how instead this could be architected.
But this actually makes sense because this comes back to what we were discussing before. So the view model will have only use cases as dependencies, and then the use cases will actually access the storage, for instance. And then at that point, you are using a use case that is just a Kotlin class instead of injecting the whole view model. But then how? Yeah, right? Because at that point, it's just going to be like a dependency that you pass to the preferences screen. You wouldn't inject the view model.
Yeah, for example, like if you take a look at the preferences screen and the parameters that it takes, like it's very difficult to know what it does, because like it has like 5 view models, but you don't know what are the responsibilities of each view model. You have to go into the view model and repeat that 5 times, versus having just one view model. And if you open the view model, you can see everything that the preferences screen is gonna be doing, all the business logic that it has to do. So that's why like the other approach might be easier to read, maybe.
And so you will create a preference screen view model with those 5 use cases injected, and then you will inject the view model into the preference screen composable.
Yeah, something like that.
But you still have to pass the callbacks as lambdas to the function, though. Like, got it?
Yeah,
makes sense.
True.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, at this point, you will have you will have the view model here. So if the view model is the one managing the callbacks, you can even not pass the callback here and just call methods on the view model when the user clicks, for instance. But I think that's another problem. But I like the idea of extracting use cases from view models, and then you can compose new view models using those use cases instead of just passing around more view models.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a question about Hilt in the chat, even if you want to cover that.
Yes. Where are we?
At the end, almost. From Illustrator.
In the chat. Sorry, in the
chat.
chat.
In the chat.
I was on Slido. Question about Hilt. I saw some open source projects such as TV. Hello, Chris. Not using singleton while providing some dependencies. Why and when do we need to define a dependency with @singleton?
Yeah, singleton is when you want to share the same instance of a type every single time that dependency is needed in other places. And so singleton, which is like how you scope something to the application component, is just just an annotation for that component. But kind of the generic way to say this is that you are scoping an instance to a particular component. And I would try to reduce the amount of scoping that you do throughout the application, because scoping and having that unique instance to be shared across multiple places is somewhat expensive. So if, for example, in our dependency injection guides, what we recommend is that if you share information, for example, you have cache in one class, it might make sense that the cache needs to be shared throughout multiple classes. So that's okay to do scoping in that case. But for example, imagine you are, I don't know, in these preferences. Preferences is something that you're gonna be injecting multiple times, and then like preferences, probably you have it here as singleton. It's okay because it might have some cache, or it might be used multiple times, so it's okay. But for things like a use case which doesn't contain mutable data, or something very cheap to create, you don't need to scope it, because you could reuse the same. You can create a different instance all the time. It's fine. So basically, I would say 2 use cases. One, which arguably people don't like it if it's expensive to create. If it's expensive to create, you can, it's up to you. But the most important thing is if it contains mutable data that it needs to be shared. And sometimes that's the case. That's when I would scope something to a component.
Yep.
Thanks.
Scoping is hard.
Well, scoping is tricky, my friend. And that's why we have one file with everything inside, so we solve the issue like that. That's my favorite architecture, the single file architecture. It simplifies a lot.
I mean, you have single page applications. You also have single file applications.
There is one of the downside is there is a lot of scrolling involved. I mean, a lot of scrolling because but it's everything in the same file. So jokes aside, another question about dependency management for repository using singleton will be bad. Instead, we can scope repository to activity scope. So like a repository connected to an activity, but if you have like one single activity app, it's gonna be basically the same scope, kinda, right?
Yeah. I had to reread the question to see. Yeah, I mean, it depends on if you have as Ivan was saying about the one, single activity application, or you have multiple activities. The component that you choose highly depends on how you structure your app with the amount of activities and fragments. And you have to think like how much or in which scope you want to share that type. So yeah, I would say singleton might be okay if you want it throughout the application, but if you have one single activity application, it's the same as doing the activity scope. Actually, I'm lying. It should be activity retained scope or activity retained component, because the activity scope is going to recreate things when you rotate and it goes through a configuration change.
Yeah,
Fair distinction, yeah. Fairly important.
Okay. Yeah. That's
Yes,
why
sorry.
everything. Why the data is not there? Why the data is not there? Yeah, fair enough. So I will suggest, Sebastiano, that we run the giveaway, and let's try to make
Stickers
somebody
and IntelliJ license.
stickers
Oh, wow.
and IntelliJ license. So Zero Cool 21 has won the giveaway. So congratulations. I'm
Congrats.
gonna try to reach out to you in the chat to get the information about the shipping. Let me take note of your name, because I'm getting old, so I need to type things down. It's
I mean,
I'm not getting any younger. So thank you for participating. If you come on, it's not the biggest giveaway of the year. We do this every week. Come on. So congratulations for the stickers, and we are getting to you also with the IntelliJ license for some Compose for desktop. Enjoy. So anything else, Sebastiano?
No, I just wanted to say someone in the chat asked if we can give a definition of what use case is. We kind of need to wrap up, but Manu, if you want, you have 30 seconds to explain what a use case is.
Minutes.
Okay. The use case is just a class that contains logic, and that can be reused in multiple parts of your app. That's it. And usually it represents something that your application needs to do, like something related to business logic. Like, for example, make a payment use case.
Okay. I think we've covered a lot of ground, but we've been doing this for 2 hours at this point. So it's probably time to start wrapping things up. Also because the time counter on my on my Twitch page is starting to overlap numbers. That's usually a sign I should stop doing whatever I'm doing. I'm either having a stroke or Twitch is. I hope it's Twitch.
UI. CSS is hard, my friend.
I know. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you a lot, Manuel, for coming. Thank you a lot for. I think that we've talked about a lot of technical things, but I think a very important thing we've talked about today is not just the contents of the guide, but the context of the guide, which is very, very important. And I think you got a bit lost in the announcement last month, and I think everything has its place. It's very important to understand why and when something applies. What else? Yeah, I think we should be wrapping it up in a second. Congrats again to I forgot the name already. Fuck.
Zero Cool 21.
Thank you. Cool 21. That's why Ivan writes them down.
Yeah.
Because we're both in the same boat.
I'm telling you, this is why, because I'm getting old, not because fashion. Oh my god.
And thank you to all the people that have joined us today, maybe for the first time. Thanks to everyone that has followed, subscribed. If you're looking at this on YouTube, thanks to you as well. Don't forget, everyone, that you can support what we do. You can contribute, make a one-off donation, or you can become a member on Ko-fi. You can be a subscriber on Twitch. If you have Amazon Prime, you can do it for free. And you've also the ability now to become a member, subscriber on YouTube. You get pretty much the same perks as on Ko-fi. And yeah, all the money that we are raising is used to improve our program, and it's invested in stickers mostly and shipping the stickers.
Well, no, because no, that's not true, because we also hired a designer that is
Right,
going to help us.
I need to
with
ping
the-
her because
with-
yeah. Right, I haven't heard from her in a few days. So I need to ping her. Just reminded me. But yeah, now we wrap up here. But yeah, stickers. But if you're a Twitch subscriber, if you're Coffee member, just join us on our Discord, because in a couple of minutes I'm going to be creating the clickbait thumbnail that people are going to be seeing with this video tomorrow on YouTube, and you can join. We're going to have a Google Meet call, and everyone is welcome to join and just push their ideas. I have a couple of ideas already. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good one. I can feel. And thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, day, whatever.
Manuel,
it's,
you can
in
come
front of
back
you.
whenever you want.
Yes,
Thank you
absolutely.
so much. Thank you. You're great, guys. Thank you so
Oh,
much
you're
for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's
Awesome.
like we love our guests and we welcome everyone back. At some point, we're gonna have to double the amount of streams we do, because we're just accumulating people that are hopefully going to come back. So, but what can we do? What can we do? Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Hasta luego.
By the way, see you on Wednesday with. Before I forget, well, I forgot already in case it wasn't clear. Yeah, we're doing design on Wednesday. Probably gestures, still to be defined, but probably. And then next Sunday, we have a very interesting stream, because we have a friend of ours, Alexandros, that is going to talk to us about how we stopped working for a company and just took essentially a time period where he's trying to create something that he likes working on. So it's very, very interesting take on the career path stuff that we've been covered in the past. So see you on Wednesday, and then see you on Sunday. Thank you again, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.